My ego, my bravado, my very arrogant nature took me down, and I ended up crashing and burning and losing everything. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul from other jobs. All of my money, gone. My home, leveraged. Credit cards maxed out. I literally put about $2.5 to $3 million into a job, and when it came time to collect, I got goose egg.
Welcome to the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast. I am your host, Daniel Wood. Today's episode brings a new twist to our show. It gives us a totally different way to answer the question, what is the difference that makes the difference? My guest today is Marquez Ogden, former NFL tackle who lived the ultimate rise and the ultimate fall. He made it to the top as a professional athlete, built momentum, built income, built identity, and then lost it all. What makes this conversation special is it doesn't stop there. Marquez didn't just recover, he rebuilt from the ground up and did it again, this time as an entrepreneur, building a real business and a real life with mindset, discipline, and resilience that most people only talk about. So if you've ever felt like you're starting over, or you've taken a financial hit, or you've lost your confidence, or you're just trying to rebuild momentum after a setback, this episode is going to be huge for you. So before I introduce you to Marquez, as always, I have a special gift for you as a thank you for joining us today. Before I share it, can I ask you a quick favor? If you've been enjoying the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast, please do, like thousands of other people all over the world, and hit the follow and subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. All right. Here's your bonus. As a thank you for listening, I want to give you 2 weeks free access to the Swedish Wealth Institute community, where you can actually implement these lessons with other entrepreneurs from all over the world. Meet real people, real execution, real accountability, get access to teaching directly from some of the top speakers in the world. So you will find the link in the show notes. Grab your free access while it's available. All right, let's start learning from Marquez Ogden. You've had not just one, but two incredible careers, both as an NFL professional football player and then as an entrepreneur. And it's obviously there's been ups and downs in both. So we're going to get into that, because what we're always trying to figure out is what is the difference that makes the difference, right? Just if we start with your NFL career, so many kids dream of becoming professional athletes when they grow up, right? And so few actually achieve this goal, and you did. So what was it? What was the key that allowed you to reach those heights?
You know what, Daniel? For me, I was very fortunate. I got to watch my older brother, Jonathan Ogden, and what it took from his perspective. He went to St. Albans High School in Washington, D.C., and he got coached by a phenomenal O-line coach named Dave Moeller. Dave played football at UNC Chapel Hill as an offensive lineman. So from 7th grade until 12th grade, right, Daniel, my brother learned phenomenal technique. And then my brother was able to teach me some technique. Well, he's 6.5 years older. And so I was able to watch him, follow him. I saw the discipline, because when he left high school, he was probably about 360. When he left and got to college after his first season, he played about 340. And then he dropped to about 305 at 6'9".
For anyone listening now, because we got Europeans, this is pounds. So he's not 360 kilos heavy. That's 360 pounds, which is a big, big guy. And then he got to his fighting weight. That was, what did you say, 305?
305. And so in pounds, right? And the thing is, right, Daniel, what I saw was the discipline, the drive, the work ethic, the dedication, what you do in the dark will show in the light. And that's what really got me to focus on really trying to be a professional athlete when I was in college. Because in high school, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I was 6'3". When I left high school and got to Howard University, I got to almost 6'6". So I was able to really go and get some more arm length reach and things of that nature. And so I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm here. Let's make the best of it, right, Daniel? And so I ended up being a 4-year starter at Howard University. And I was very fortunate with hard work, discipline, and drive. What I learned from my older brother, Jonathan, I was drafted to the National Football League by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Let me jump in there a moment. Before we get to the actual pro career, let's break down some of these lessons that you got from your brother growing up. So what were kind of the things, like you saw him obviously pave the way ahead of you. What were some of the things that he was doing that, his teammates and other athletes were not doing?
Daniel, he was constantly working on his technique when everybody else was not. And that's what I learned. I learned, especially as an offensive lineman, right, Daniel? If you're going to be any type of great player, it is not a natural position. It's not like playing wide receiver, running the football, catching, or even playing like defensive line, like trying to find a quarterback and go and hit him. Offensive line is a lot of footwork, a lot of angles, a lot of technique. So for me, watching my brother do that day in and day out when others weren't, Daniel, that's what made me realize I want to be like him. And he gave me that start to learn how to do that at a very young age.
Right. Very cool. So for those of you who don't know American football, just a quick breakdown there. When the game starts, you have the offensive team, you have the defensive team. You have the offensive team as a quarterback. He's the one who gets the ball. He'll either throw it to one of his wide receivers who are covered by a corner or a safety who's trying to get the guy not to catch the ball. And then you have a group of guys called the defensive line who are supposed to run and try to hit the quarterback. This is why it's a frightening position. And the offensive line, their job is basically to absorb these guys and stop them from killing their buddy. And as you say, if you watch an NFL game, the defensive line is basically, they're running full out. They're doing moves. They're just trying to get to the quarterback, while the offensive line, they're not allowed to grab and hold and pull the guy down. Like, there's a lot of details for how they have to stop him. So I can definitely imagine the technique. But so you're saying the other players what were they doing differently? Like, if he was working on technique, what were they doing?
A lot of those kids in the high school, they just honestly, Daniel, weren't doing anything extra. And even when Jonathan got to college, I didn't get to see him as much because he was at UCLA. I was living in Washington, D.C. on the East Coast. Jonathan went to UCLA on the total West Coast. I only saw Jonathan play one time in college at the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin. Great game. But from what Jonathan was telling me about what he was doing differently, even in college, right, Daniel, it was the discipline, the dedication to his craft when other guys were partying or out, chasing girls or out doing other things. And they weren't focusing on trying to become the best athlete they could. And Jonathan was one of those rare breeds that always put his craft, his education before anything else.
Right. So they would show up at practice. They would do everything the coach told them to do, but then practice was over and they would go live their life, while your big brother kept on going and worked on stuff even when the coach said you're done for the day.
It's Daniel, exactly. Because here's the thing, right, Daniel? My brother had not one, not two, not three, but 4 different O-line coaches in college. Every year, Daniel, a new offensive line coach, new techniques, new schemes, new schematics. But Jonathan had great technique from 7th grade through 12th grade for 6 years. And he worked on it daily. When he got to college, still worked on his craft daily. And at 6'9", 300 pounds plus, that could move athletically in a short, very condensed area, that is a dangerous, very great offensive lineman you're building. Because again, right, Daniel, it's about the technique. So Jonathan was just always doing things without someone. That's a good way of putting it, Daniel. Jonathan would do things without being told he had to do it. And that's what really I learned about being, right, a self-inspired, self-starting athlete.
Now let's talk a little about you, because obviously your brother is a Hall of Famer and absolutely amazing, but you were an NFL star yourself. So when was it that this clicked? You said like in high school you were mostly having fun. When was it that it clicked for you and you went, this is what I want to do and I'm going to give that extra like my brother?
When I was going to my redshirt junior year, okay, Daniel, I was a 2-year starter going to my 3rd year starting, and a few NFL teams.
Is this in high school now?
No, Howard. This is college. This is Howard University.
This is college. All right. So you got through based on you being a big, just naturally skilled guy. You got into college. You started doing your thing, and then second year, go.
Right. So what happens actually, so the first 2, so I got to college and I redshirted, right, Dang? So that first year, I didn't play. I just lifted, got stronger, right? The second year was my redshirt freshman year, because if you don't play, right, Daniel, it doesn't count against your years. So I played for 5
and so
years
let's just break that down for everyone listening. So you only have a certain amount of, is it 4 years of college availability?
5 if you don't play, right. But yes, correct. Yep.
Yeah. But so you can play for 4 years, but then you can redshirt yourself, which means you're not actually able to play, but you're allowed to train with the team, and that can extend your time. So you took a first year just training. Even if people had gotten hurt and you could have gotten into the game, you weren't allowed to because you've chosen to be a redshirt.
Correct. And so my second year, which is my redshirt freshman year, I was a starting offensive lineman for the Howard University Bison. And so I was a redshirt freshman starter, redshirt sophomore starter. Going into my redshirt junior year, Daniel, that's when it clicked. Like, wait a second, I actually can do this beyond college. I have the skill set, I have the work ethic, I have the ability. Because what happens, right, Daniel, NFL scouts started coming to practice to watch me practice. And I saw my name in NFL draft books. And when that happened, it clicked in my mind, wow, if other people see this, then now I need to see it. So if I can see it, I can achieve it. So it really clicked going into my redshirt junior year at Howard University.
Right. So you got that far based on basically modeling your brother, doing what he'd done, and then by skill. And then when you realize that, wait a sec, I'm getting into games and I'm able to stop guys, I can actually do this, and the scouts are seeing it. That's when you realize, wait a sec, I could do this at a higher level. And what did you do differently then? Like, you were obviously already working hard because you'd seen your brother, but what was the difference when you went, all right, I'm doing this for real?
At that point, Daniel, I raised my floor and I stopped making excuses for myself. I stopped partying. I stopped hanging out with people that weren't around, that had like good, intentions. I raised my standards of people that I associated with. I elevated my associations. I elevated my floor, raised my standards. I had a lot more drive to work out harder on my own without having to do it with the team. I did things extra. I said, you know what? I'm going to do everything everybody else does. I'm going to go even way beyond that. And that, Daniel, was what got me to be drafted into the National Football League. It's the work ethic that others weren't putting in, that I was putting in and day out without anybody telling me to do it.
Right. And you were seeing other people, maybe even with more talent than you, who were not putting in that energy and therefore didn't get drafted.
Oh, sure. Especially as I got to watch, right, Daniel, big time college football, like Georgia's, Miami's, Florida State's, those guys, those players, they were not working beyond the practice or the training. They weren't doing the extra things. And that's what I saw that allowed me to go from Howard to the National Football League.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about draft day, because that's a dream for any US kid who wants to go pro, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey. What was draft day like for you? And let's explain the draft, what it is first.
Yep. So the draft is when NFL teams have done all their studying, all their evaluating, all their assessments, and they try to draft the best players that they need positions filled for their football team. There are 7 rounds in the draft. Every team gets 1 pick per round. Unless you have in trade, stuff like that, it's going to always fall each team gets 1 draft pick per round. And there's a lot goes into it, right, Daniel? Strategy. Who you want as your top guy, who's the backup if that top guy's off the board. We don't need that position, but that's the best guy available in the draft. So there's a lot of science, there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of studying that goes into the NFL draft.
Big difference in the NFL draft compared to especially the baseball, the Major League Baseball draft, is that NFL players coming out of or college players coming into the NFL are expected to be ready to show up and play. In baseball, they're expected to go through the minor leagues for 3 to 5 years before they ever make it to the major leagues. But you are expected to basically come and show up day one and play with these pros. But before we get to that, let's talk about that draft day. What was that like?
Draft day for me was amazing. I was with my family, my father, my mother, my grandparents. I was around great people that loved me, supported me. And I remember getting that phone call from the Jacksonville Jaguars and Jack Del Rio. And Jack asked me a question, Marcus, who else has been calling and talking to you? I said, Coach, I heard from the Cowboys. I heard from the Bengals. I heard from the 49ers. He said, that's all I need to hear. Stop. Tell everybody else to go away. We are drafting you with our next pick. And welcome to the Jacksonville Jaguars family. And we'll see you in a week at OTAs, or off-season training activities. And come down here ready to work and put in maximum effort. And that was I cried when I saw my name, Daniel, go across the screen on ESPN. Marquez Ogden drafted Howard University to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That must have been incredible. So what changed because obviously you were working hard in college, and when you watch documentaries about college football, it looks like they work incredibly hard. So what was the difference between working out in a college program and working out as a professional?
Daniel, one simple word: speed. Everybody in the National Football League is fast. Everybody. The defensive linemen weighing 330 or 280 are fast. The linebackers, the safeties, the offensive linemen are fast in their area. And that, my friend, was one of the most difficult things to get used to my first year, is how big, how strong, how fast everybody was on the football field. In college, there were a couple of guys that were big and fast, or a couple of guys that were big, strong, but everybody, Daniel, on that field, everybody was fast. And it was so hard to adjust. And that was the biggest thing I had to get adjusted to.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's one of the things, each level you go up. It's obviously when you go from high school to college, from college to pro, it's only those guys that were the superstars at the lower level that join you at the higher level. So as you said, there were a couple guys that were strong and fast and skilled in college, but now they were the average in pro. So what did you have to do to adapt to now, not being able to just identify this guy is good, let's keep an eye on him, these guys are pushovers. Now there are no pushovers. So how did you raise your game?
So what I did was I really found some great mentors from my coaches and from guys I was playing on the field with. And I got to learn from them the technique that was needed to not just be strong and fast, but at the same time combine both. And once I learned that technique, Daniel, that's when things started to really flourish. That's when things took off to the next level. So again, that was a huge, huge part of our process. I had to really stop and I had to learn from some professionals, some great guys on the field, how to elevate myself at the highest level.
Right. As always, a mentor is what it needs. So what did you do? What does it take to be strong and fast? What's the secret?
It's really about learning how to balance both the lifting and the running and have a perfect blend. And that's why every team has a strength and conditioning coach, because the strength and conditioning coach, they understand how to do enough of the lifting plus the running at optimal level, how to rest, how to recover, how to push yourself, how to do, the stretching and all these. And that's another thing too, right, Daniel? Stretching is a big part of making yourself faster and more durable and more, flexible. And that's a big, big part of the whole process. Everybody has to understand without a shadow of a doubt, right, Daniel, that if you want to be great or play a high level of professional sport, your strength is important. Your speed is absolutely vital. But your flexibility, your ability to stretch and be limber and not get hurt is almost or even more important to increase speed, increase strength, and increase stamina.
Right. And that's really interesting, too, that you talk about the strength and conditioning coach, because if you watch an NFL game, they talk about the head coach, they talk about the offensive play caller, the defensive play caller, but they're not talking about, the rest of the staff. Who were the most important people that were supporting you on as a player?
Oh my gosh, you have the strength and conditioning program and team, coaches, assistant strength coaches. You've got your position coaches like the O-line coach. They're vital. And you also have people that are working in the training room, the training staff. They are absolutely vital because the training staff, if you get hurt or get nicked up, those are the individuals that you go to get healed and to recover and get back on that football field. So strength and conditioning, awesome. Your position coaches, vital. But your trainers, your athletic training and athletic training staff, Daniel, they're big. Because if you get hurt or get a little bit banged up or damaged, they are the ones that get you back on the field.
Nice. So if we look at now comparing, because you've also had an incredible business career, and we're going to talk about that more in a moment, but coming out of being a professional athlete and going into and now being a very successful business person, what are the similarities you see in the mindset and preparation between athletics and entrepreneurship?
Big thing, you have to train your mind, right, Daniel? That's going to be a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. This is not the lottery. It is a disciplined, structured approach to get you to where you want to be. And I tell people, if you're not going to be somebody that's really ready to dig in your heels, roll your sleeves up, get your elbows dirty, and work hard and be consistent when things aren't going well, when times are hard, then please, please, please do not go into entrepreneurship because it's not going to end well for you.
Yep, I agree. 100%. Now, before we get into the entrepreneur's journey, I want to, as a father, ask about, because it's really cool to me that, both you and your brother had a dream, had a goal, and both achieved it. You both went pro. So what was it in your family, or was it something in your family and how you grew up, do you think, that gave you a basis to achieve this?
You know what, Daniel? Being raised by a single father really turned out to be the best thing for both my brother and I, because we were both huge guys, huge men, but so was our dad. Our dad was a strong, independent, kind, loving person. And he taught us how to be more disciplined than dedicated, which I mean discipline, doing what you hate to get what you want. Dedication, doing what you love to get what you want. And I'm dedicated in the gym, right, Daniel? But now I'm disciplined to run. And I hate running, but I'm disciplined to do it. And that's what our Father taught us, that if we're going to be successful, prosperous in life, we've got to be disciplined. We've got to be able to, no matter what, right, Daniel, find a way to get it done. And that's what I learned from Cheryl Philip Ogden. So that was a big part of our success.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, it's so easy to push hard on these things we're naturally good at and that we enjoy. As you said, you like the gym, you don't like going out running. So having the dedication and the discipline to do both is absolutely amazing. So now talk about what happened to you coming out of football. You've obviously played pro, you've made a bunch of money, but you didn't just ride off into the sunset and have massive success. Well, what happened to you is what happens to a lot of athletes. So talk about that. What happened when you left pro?
So, Dane, when I left the NFL, I struggled immensely for about 6 months with alcohol abuse, addiction, painkillers, nightlife, gambling, and I just had no purpose. I had no passion. I had no drive. I had no strategy. I had no structure. I had no community. And I ended up just really defiling myself to almost every way you can think of. Luckily, I was still here by the grace of God. And when I finally got my act together, I started Caden Premier Enterprises. We started out as a small concrete contractor that worked in Baltimore City. And we grew to be the largest African-American owned subcontractor in the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland for 2 years. But unfortunately, Daniel,
let's break down this journey first, though, because I know there's more twists and turns, but you kind of sped through first that first step. You'd lived in this very structured box your entire life, right? College, football, and then from that you lost that structure and kind of derailed yourself. How did you get yourself out of that dark place you were in?
So basically what happened is one morning I woke up and I realized that if I kept doing what I was doing, the heavy drinking and driving, painkillers, nightlife, all these things, at some point, right, Daniel, my luck was going to run out and I was going to leave this earth early and I was going to take with it the legacy that my dad wanted us to leave with him because he was already gone. So if I died right then and there, not just me and my legacy was gone, what our Father tried to instill in us was going to also die with me. And one morning I said, I've got to change. And that was the beginning going from negative fighting to neutral.
Wow. And so what actions did you take that day when you had that insight? What did you do with that?
So then I said to myself, wow, Marcus, what do you want to do? And I went to my computer and I looked up opportunities for athletes in Baltimore City, Baltimore area. And it said construction is something that athletes seem to do well in. And then I went to an event at Morgan State and I heard Congressman Elijah Cummings, who was a very prominent politician at that time. I ended up meeting my business partner at that event, and Congressman Cummings said, one of you will be the next minority contractor to create a table where you invite other minority contractors to the table to do major business. And that inspired me to start the journey onto and starting up Caden Premier Enterprises.
So you didn't start by sitting down and planning and thinking, and you basically, the moment you said, I got to do something different, you took action right away and just started searching, what can I do right away, and got into it.
Correct, because I didn't want to I didn't want to have, paralysis by analysis. And I was still very young and I still wanted to like get going. And I figured if I was going to do a lot of research, I could potentially talk myself out of it. And I said, you know what? This is something that seems that athletes do well in. I'm really good at sales and marketing. I have a great name, family in Baltimore from playing football. Let's try it. And Daniel, it worked.
So what happened to that first business?
It went under because my ego, my bravado, my very arrogant nature took me down, and I ended up crashing and burning and losing everything.
Wow. So tough question here. When you got a business partner, especially after the fact, usually it's one of the business partner's faults that the business crashed. Was it on you or was it on your business partner this time?
Oh, it was on me. Absolutely on me. Because what happened is, right, Daniel, we were doing some work, extra work for a client, large client, one of our better clients. But unfortunately, I trusted that client blindly. And we did extra work without a change order. I did extra work without signed documentation because I trusted a client. And I tell people all the time, in business, it's business. Get everything documented, signed, dotted I's, T's crossed, and don't make the same mistake I did. Don't say, oh, I work for that company. They're going to take care of me. They're never going to hurt me. Those are the same things I kept saying, right, Daniel? And I ended up losing everything. I ended up moving to Raleigh, Daniel, $5.5 million in debt.
So basically you did all that work and they ended up not paying that bill and you got stuck with all the expenses and none of the income.
Amen. And I exhausted Daniel my bank line. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul from other jobs. I was extending credit for supplies for our job. And when it all came crashing down, the bank line tapped out. My credit line with my vendors maxed out. All of my money gone. My home leveraged. Credit cards maxed out. I literally, Daniel, put about $2.5 to $3 million into a job. And when it came time to collect, I got goose egg on that $2.5 to $3 million bill. Goose egg.
And now, I mean, you are now then in a situation where not only did you fail the business, you've now lost basically everything you earned as a pro football player. Like you've leveraged your home. You're at zero. Luckily, you're here today because that's not where your story ended. So what did you do? You've had these ups. You've come back once. You're down in a different type of hole this time. So how did you break out of this one?
I ended up moving to Raleigh, bankrupt. Well, I was so broke and broken, full of brokenness. I ended up hiring a bankruptcy attorney. I was so broke, Daniel, I couldn't pay my $3,300 bill at all at once to protect me from $5.5 million of debt. I had to pay off in installments. I got down here. I was working for Merrill Lynch. I got fired. All my fault. I went to a construction company the next day, got fired from that job 5 days later. I was fired twice in the same week. I ended up taking a job as a custodian, Daniel, working in downtown Raleigh for $8.25 an hour. And what happened is on my shift, I hit rock bottom where someone's trash, rotten meat, nasty, protruding, horrible smelling, funky garbage got all over me. And I sat down on the curb right by the trash dump and I cried for 10 minutes. And I said, what in the world has happened to my life? What did I realize, right, Daniel? No accountability, no responsibility. I was always blaming somebody else. So what happened is I finally got humbled and said, if I'm going to get out of here, it's on me. And that began my journey into keynote speaking in September 2013.
Well, it's so interesting to hear this, because this is the exact same thing that Rob Moore was talking about when I interviewed him. Is, it's all on me, right? It's all on us as the leader of our own lives to take that responsibility, and that's what makes it rough. And I can imagine that feeling you must have had after being, a pro football player with stadiums of people cheering you on, to sitting there on the curb with someone else's trash all over you, making, $8 and cents per hour, and just looking at what happened. How did I get here? So when you made that decision, what changed?
What changed, Daniel, was I stopped doing this, pointing the finger, I pointed the thumb right back where it belonged, at me. And I stopped looking for somebody to come and save me. I stopped looking for someone to take the blame for me. And I stopped looking for somebody to say, oh, I'm going to come and save you, Marcus. Here's the horse, the white horse, coming to save you and take you back to your mansion and give you back your life and put you in the NFL. I stopped. And once I stopped looking for somebody else, right, Daniel, I started to learn how strong and how capable I really was. But again, it didn't come easy. I started speaking in September 2013, right, Daniel? I didn't get a paid job until April 2016. 30 months, 30. But I never gave up. I never stopped pushing. I never stopped going after what I wanted. My resilience was much greater than the resistance that I faced along the way. And once I got my first paid job, then I got my second paid job. Then in 2018, I met Mel Robbins. I went to a coaching program. Since 2018, Daniel, we've spoken for over 85 Fortune 500 companies.
Wow. Well, talk about your business. So what is it you do now?
We do keynote speaking. We do business coaching. We do corporate consulting. I'm a best-selling author. And we have a podcast called Get Authentic with Marquez Ogden, where we interview amazing people like Daniel Wood, who was a guest on our show.
That was actually really, really fun. That's a really good show. So guys, we'll link to that in the show notes, not just my episode, but overall the show, so you can check out, because you've interviewed some amazing people. But so what is your biggest takeaway from this whole journey of up and down? Like when you have a keynote, what is the one thing you want people to take with them and leave with?
I want them to learn how to thrive through the eye of the storm and move like a bison. What I mean is learn how to face challenges head on. Don't run, don't hide. Your challenges, your struggles will find you. Be bold, have integrity, be self-aware, take ownership, never ever quit. When you move like a bison, I don't care what you face, how hard the journey is, you never ever quit. And that is the takeaway that I want people to really walk away with, my friend, how to live, how to move like a bison.
Awesome, my man. Well, we end every interview with a quick fire round. So are you ready for a couple quick questions?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Just the first thing that comes to mind. So first question, what is the best advice you've ever gotten from a teammate or a coach?
Be your own self-starting, self-inspired CEO. Jack Del Rio. Jack just said, you want to be successful in life, right, Daniel? Be your own CEO. Be your own chief executive officer.
Nice. What was the biggest lesson you got from your biggest business mistake?
Learning to shut up and actively listen and trust your people. One of my best people, right, Daniel, tried to tell me the path we were on was leading to bankruptcy. But I shunned him. I made him feel like less of a person. He handed me his 2-week resignation papers the next day. 2 weeks later, he was gone. And like he predicted, 3 months later, Daniel, pow, we're out of business.
Very good. What is a quote that you live by?
Never tell your mind negative thoughts in a joking manner. Your body cannot dissimulate the difference. Words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Choose how you talk to yourself and choose wisely. Bruce Lee.
Nice. All right. What's one book, not your own, that you think everyone should read?
Ooh, The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. I love that book about giving, things like laws of value, laws of reciprocity. I love Bob's law of value. Give more value than you take in payment. If you live like that, right, my friend, you can never go wrong.
Agreed. So what is one thing you are really excited about for yourself for the next 12 months?
We're excited about growing our YouTube channel of our podcast and also our TikTok to give us more of a visual presence, because our audio presence with our podcast is sensational. We're now getting to that next phase of building a lot more on the visual side through our YouTube channel and our TikTok to help us get more visibility, more exposure, and more reach.
Nice. Well, we'll link to all of that in the show notes. So definitely, guys, go check that out. If nothing else, to learn what is the cutting edge techniques in these different platforms. All right, my man, I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to give you the chance to connect more with our audience. I know you've prepared something special for them, and we like spoiling our audience here. So what do you got for us?
They can join the Inner Game community for completely free. I will send you through WhatsApp, Daniel, the link to join. It's normally $97 per month, but for this awesome group of people, all you have to do is click on the link and say you want to join. I will approve you into our school platform where we have discussions about how to tap in to your inner game. So I want your amazing global audience, right, Daniel? They can join for free by clicking on the link that I'm going to send you through WhatsApp here in a moment.
Awesome. So we'll make sure we add that to the show notes below as well. So there's a lot of good stuff in the show notes this time. So Marcus, I really, really appreciate that. Any last words of wisdom you want to leave us with before we let you go?
I will pull a quote from Aristotle. In times of extreme darkness, focus on the light. Be the light that guides others out of darkness, despair, isolation. What we need to do is that we have to realize that our experiences, our knowledge, and our wisdom can be a light to help others that are going through tough times, hardship, and darkness. So in times of extreme darkness, focus on the light.
Wow. And people call jocks stupid, right?
How about that?
And here we are quoting Aristotle. My man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And, obviously we'll speak again soon.
Talk soon, my good friend.
Thank you so much for joining us here for this episode with Marquez Ogden. It's time for my favorite segment, What is the Difference That Makes the Difference?, where me and the team here at the Swedish Wealth Institute analyze the episode to see what are some key lessons that we can all take and implement as we go forward in our lives from these lessons. So let's start with the first one, which is master the fundamentals when nobody's watching. So I really like this. Marquez, he didn't just get to the NFL by, wanting it, by being motivated. He got there by copying what worked. In his case, his brother's discipline, technique, and the extra reps that he did when everyone else was done for the day. So how do we implement it? Well, we pick one core skill that we know will have a difference in our lives, right? So whatever that could be for you, it could be sales calls, pitching, lead follow-up, content, closing, fitness, funnel, whatever it is in your business. Take 30 minutes every day to work on the technique around that. Not the fun stuff, but the fundamentals that actually make an impact. All right, number 2, raise your floor and stop negotiating with your own excuses. So when Marquez realized how tough the NFL actually was, he said he had to raise his floor. So he had to cut out partying. He upgraded his circle of friends. He changed his standard. That's what separates the truly talented people from those who, just maybe got drafted. So for us, we need to make a floor list. What are 3 non-negotiables you do weekly no matter what? What are 2 habits you need to remove because they're destroying your momentum? If you raise your standards, your results will follow. All right, the third one here. Speed forces humility. Mentorship makes you adapt. So what did Marquez say was the biggest difference from going from college to the NFL? Speed. Suddenly there were no weak links. His answer wasn't his ego, it was mentorship, learning from the coaches, learning from the veterans, sharpening his technique, getting faster mentally as well as physically. So let's implement it for us. What is our NFL speed exposure? If you put yourself in the room where you're not the big fish, then you do this. You ask the person ahead of you, if you or me, what would you stop doing immediately? And listen like your future depends on it. Because you know what? It kind of does. All right, number 4, your comeback starts the day you stop blaming. So Marquez's lowest moment wasn't losing money. It was losing his purpose, structure, and accountability. His turning point was simple. He stopped pointing the fingers outward and stopped pointing the thumbs inward. No savior was coming. So how do we implement this? Write down this sentence and finish it with total honesty. The reason why I'm not where I want to be yet is because I have been, and fill out what that would be. Choose one correct action you can take today, not soon, today, because momentum starts with ownership. Number 5, our last lesson here for this episode was execution beats overthinking, but structure protects your future. He avoided paralysis by analysis and took action fast. That saved him, but he also learned the hard business lesson. No signed documentation, no protection. Trusting without paperwork cost him millions. So implement this by living by 2 rules. Action rule 1, when you decide to change, take 1 step within 24 hours. Protection rule, in business, no signature, no work. Change orders, contracts, everything's got to be documented. Your future self will thank you. Now, these were the 5 key lessons that we took. I'd love to hear if you took any different lessons or if you agree with these. Please leave either a review on the podcast or comment, depending on which platform you are connecting with us on. We'd love to hear what was your biggest takeaway. And before you go, we have a gift for you. As a thank you for listening, I want to give you a gift to our upcoming Money Mastery New Year's Summit that you can claim. We have it in different time zones, so we both do North America and Europe. You have the opportunity to claim a free ticket and learn from speakers like Robert Kiyosaki, Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, Nick Vujicic, Janet Atwood, Marcy Shimoff, Brian Tracy, Joseph McClendon III, and many more. Absolutely amazing speakers. The link is in the show notes. Please make sure you grab one of the free tickets before they run out. And of course, if you got some value from today, please do these 2 things quickly. Make sure, first off, that you're followed already, that you followed or subscribed to the podcast like thousands of people have done all over the world. And of course, share the episode with someone who's maybe in that rebuild now, because this conversation could be the reset that they need. Next week, we have a really exciting episode. I'm going to be interviewing Jarek Robbins, son of Tony Robbins, and he is going to be breaking down what is the latest in AI and how does it change everything about how businesses are run, from decision-making to operations to marketing to leadership. This one is going to be huge. So I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for being a part of the Swedish Wealth Institute. See you soon.
I think Warren Buffett said the language of business is accounting. And if you can't speak the language, you can't win or play the game. I went out and had what I thought was the best year I've ever had in business. I had more revenue than I've ever seen in my life. And I sat down with my accountant at the end of the year and he goes, "How do you think you did?" And I was like, "Crushed it. You see the numbers? They're huge." He goes, "You would have made more money working at McDonald's." He goes, "No, you paid $30,000 to work all year this year." The big mistake was I didn't know how to speak the language. and I landed up $30,000 negative for the year, even though it was technically the best year in business. This is what I was saying. You need facts, not stories.